Yes, ma'am.
You did?
Oh, I don't know who that is.
I'm already joined.
Has that been added? Oh, okay.
Okay, good evening. I know why everybody's in a happy mood, because school's about to start. Yay! All right, good evening, everyone. We're ready to begin this evening's board meeting. School board meeting of July 30th, 2019 is called to order. The time is 6:02. At this time, we request that all electronic devices be put in the silent mode. Also, we ask that you please refrain from flash photography. The agenda can also be found on the district's website, which is www.leeschools.net. Navigate to the Leadership tab and choose School Board. We would like to take this opportunity to remind the members of the public of the district's mission, which is to ensure that each student achieves his or her highest personal potential, and the district's vision, which is to be a world-class school system. Approval of the agenda. This evening's agenda is the invocation, Pledge of Allegiance, one acknowledgement, public comment, consent items, which include 2 in executive services, 25 under academic services, 2 under business services, 10 under human resources, 1 of which is good cause. Dr. Atkins, please provide an explanation for this item.
The one item for good cause related to human resources is to make sure that we have administrators in place in our buildings prior to the start of school. So it was important to get that in front of the board.
Okay. And as presiding officer, I find there is good cause to add this one item to the agenda. 11 items under
Madam
operation.
Chair, there is a second item.
Oh, under human resources?
It's under operations.
Okay, yeah, well, I was,
Getting there, okay, I
Yeah.
apologize.
that's all right. You were so good at numbers, you just want, okay. 11 items under operations, which one is, of which one is good cause. Dr. Atkins, now please
Okay,
explain.
thank you. This item relates to our bus transportation routes. We require board approval to get those routes in place prior to the start of the year, so I'm bringing this item, good cause.
Okay, as presiding officer, I find there is good cause to add this one item to the agenda as well. There will be 2 items under public hearing and 4 items under other business. Board members, is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Second. Morgan, and seconded by Ms. Vaughn. Please record your vote. Susan, are we recording? Okay. Please record your vote electronically. And the motion passes 7-0. Now we will have Ms. Giovanelli will deliver the invocation, and Ms. Patrica will deliver the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'm going to surprise my board members afterwards. If you're wearing a shirt, before we sit down, we want them to read the back of our shirt as well. So after all is done, before we sit down. Okay, Ms. Giovanelli, Ms. Patrica, all please stand.
Please rise. Please bow your heads. Thank you for every seat that has been filled here today. For each mind and heart that fills the presence of this room, we thank you. Please bless the superintendent and his employees. Only you truly know that what we are setting out to accomplish today. We have an idea, a vision, hence daily instructions. We have talents, abilities, and time to work. However, only you can see in perfect detail the end of every beginning. Every project, every season, every life. Nothing is ever in vain, for even mistakes and missteps are used for good. Your righteousness transcends all our efforts and understanding. Forgive us for our pride, the pride that puffs us up and the pride that threatens to divide us. Strength and confidence is who you have made us to be. Set us free from comparison in order to work together efficiently. Bless this meeting today, all those present, as well as the lives of each that we touch, our students and our staff, and those we encounter afterwards. Ready us to make every moment count. In his name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And we are prepared to be
School.
schooled. Okay, thank you. Okay. I'll be glad when we get school going again, because then we will have students that will read our character word. The character word for July is self-control, the ability to direct or regulate your actions, emotions, and words. The quote, "Self-control is knowing you can, but deciding you won't." Author unknown. The design displayed on the screen was created by Luke Layden, a 2019 graduate of Estero High School. Hopefully he's off in college by now. Okay, next we will have public comment. And Mr. Gabriel, please address the agenda item of public comment.
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. School board policy provides the opportunity at this point in the meeting to address the board concerning any matter on this meeting's agenda or any other matter relevant to the operation of the school district. If you completed a card and submitted it to the, up here on the dais before the meeting began, you will be called in the order of the card submitted. If you did not submit a card but still wish to address the board this evening, Ms. Gittens, the board's chair, will give you an opportunity in a moment to express that desire. The rules concerning comment are posted in the back of the room. The board does not respond during public comment time to remarks made by speakers. At the end of the public comment period, the board chair will address the assignment of any concerns or requests made during the public comment to the superintendent. Speakers and those attending the meeting are expected to act in a respectful manner. Attacks on individuals or abusive comments are prohibited. In addition, clapping, booing, hissing are prohibited. Speakers who fail to follow the rules regarding quorum will be ruled out of order. Any speaker continuing with such remarks will be required to relinquish the lectern for Board Policy 1.11. Time per speaker will be 3 minutes, Madam Chair. I have 10 cards.
Okay. We offer the opportunity for those who are unfamiliar with public comment, the process to raise your hands and provide your name if you did not receive a blue card. The blue card is a public record identifying those who speak and providing contact information for staff to follow up. If you did not complete a blue card, comment card, please proceed to Ms. Johnson to my right after completing your comments. And please clearly speak into the mic your first and last name so that everyone can hear. Before calling on the blue cards, if there's anyone on my right, any additional people that do not have a blue card? Any on my left? Okay. Then I believe we are ready.
We're ready to proceed. Thank you. First speaker we have is Randy Scott.
Scott, and I appreciate to be here. I'm here about a rule of law, all right? We're hearing a lot of that discussion in our community lately, locally, nationally. We're about a rule of law. I watched the meetings you've had the past couple of days. As a former member of the Finance Advisory Committee, I find them overmatching this board. COP certificates, which we'll talk about later. But for now, I'd like to talk about the rule of law and in regards to the operation of this board. You have Dr. Atkins, when we look at the comparison between our state government, we have 3 branches of government. The design of that was to make sure that they had equal powers. What you have here is 2 branches of government, and one of them controls, and that's Dr. Atkins. The control he's doing isn't good. There's a lot of people that are being unfairly targeted by some call SWAT operations, spoofing people's telephone numbers, calling police, having them show up. Those are completely hilarious, as you can see by the grin of Dr. Atkins right now. I think what ultimately you're going to find is that Dr. Atkins doesn't lead this district like you think he does. He leads it for the money people, He leads it against the children. We talk about everything here for the students. It's only words, and those words ain't becoming flesh here. When you go out into the community, you'll see that parents have a distrust of the safety implementations you do here. As a former employee who was fired by Patrica and Atkins and Pruitt and Desmore, I'm not concerned about that anymore. I'll go on. But there's still students here who are being impacted by the power of one person in this body, and it's him. There might need to be a legislative fix to it, but if y'all don't step up and get into your lane of duties, it ain't gonna be fixed. Let me add too, Dr. Atkins is a sole provider of all settlements. For some reason, he gave Gwen a $40,000 settlement, no questions asked. Now he's fighting Ms. Perez and Gabby, spending $150,000 against them when they were looking for 50. There's some inequities happening here, and it's all about the power of one person who has the purse strings. The purse strings of this board. And the board is the one that's supposed to have the purse strings. Any insurance company will tell you that they don't negotiate or litigate a bad cause. They will settle. Dr. Atkins has his hands in John Eastern's ink, and it's the funds of this district that he is using as his personal kitty for personal power.
Next, we have Louis Navarna.
Navarra.
I might mispronounce you, and I apologize in advance. It's close enough. Thank you, sir.
Good evening.
One second.
Gwen,
1 second.
School Board, Lou Navarra. Many years in Lee County. Hope you enjoyed your vacation. This is your honey-do list, folks. Where is my 0.5% tax on the odd dollar roundup? I'm being patient, but I'm still not getting answers. Why did we lay off experienced teachers like Mr. K when those people were hollering about him? And it's reported to me that you are paying a penalty for violating the class size amendment because it's cheaper to do that. Here's your question. How much penalty per day are we paying? What has transportation done considering Layla Aiken's death? And we do have, I'm leaving you some pictures of some of the things that are happening in Cape Coral. Are we getting lights at all the bus stops? The one at Layla's was burned out. It's now a new LED, and Fox 4 and I were out there when I was doing the memorial. I will be contacting LCEC. This is not your fault, because they have a bad habit of not fixing lights. I wanted to do that job when I retired from teaching, but they weren't interested. Okay, so it's a shame. It really is. Why are we 30 teachers short? That is 900 students without a qualified teacher all year, but we got Lexus pay raises for the superintendent and the administration, 3.5%, while the teachers got the muffler pay raise, $40,500 starting salary. They make less than a board member. I read an email from a concerned citizen about $150,000 to fight an ESC's educational rights. Who approved this discriminatory amount? Did you not read the USA Today about ESC students in the news press Sunday about ESC students getting the shaft unequally? You ought to check that out. Lastly, I'm asking this board to approve 120 in-service hours for me to go to Area 51 so I can be recertified next year.
Okay.
Come on now.
Thank you, sir. Kevin, you're up with that. Please have a seat, sir. Thank you. Kevin Daly?
You can't cut me off, though.
Yes, sir. Kevin Daly?
Good evening, Chair Gittens, Dr. Atkins, board members, and everybody here. My name is Kevin Daly, and I'm the president of the Teachers Association of Lee County. And Friday, last week, Kerr, my director, and myself, and a lot of our members had the opportunity to talk to about 300 new hires for the School District of Lee County at New Teacher Orientation. This was a diverse group. It was a great group. I spoke to a young lady who has yet to graduate. I think she's graduating Saturday. A guy I knew from my previous school who's moving over from Spelk to Talc. And then I met a union president from Michigan with 26 years experience who had retired up there and figured he had about 10 more years in him down here. And when I spoke about the opportunity for these teachers to have a career here. And I referenced everybody who got up and spoke before me, 20-something years, 30-something years. But honestly, after I left, I wonder how much longer we can say that. And I rise to say that because right now we're at a competitive disadvantage with the districts that surround us. The district just to our south and the district just to our north both went up considerably in their starting pay. I'm concerned that if we don't do something ourselves in Lee County to enable us to collect more revenue to raise teacher pay and support staff pay, that we're going to become a district that hires people, trains them, gets 3 or 4 years under their belt, develops their craft and their art, and then realizes in a 20-minute drive, they might get a 10% raise. So sometimes in elected positions, you have to make difficult decisions and you have to take a difficult stance. In my opinion, this is one of those times. I have taken that stance here once before, and I'm here to take it again tonight, and I'm asking you guys to take it as well, to move forward the millage for teacher pay and staff pay for the 2020 ballot. We simply can't wait another 4 years for this to happen, as I said. And I don't think this is a conservative or a liberal issue. I think this is an investment in the public schools in Lee County, and almost everybody's kids go to these public schools, whether you're conservative or liberal or in the middle. So again, this is an issue of an investment. What kind of investment are we willing to make in our employees, and what kind of stance, difficult as it may be in the community, are we to take in support of this effort? So like I said, sometimes in an elected position, you have to take a tough stance, and you have to take a stance that isn't popular. And I think—
You have 30 seconds to me.
Thank you. I think this is one of those times where we start to need to talk about moving the mill forward for salaries for support staff and teachers. Thanks.
Thank you.
Next person is Jerry Ware. You ready?
Good evening. My name is Jerry Ware, and I came very pleased with what happened while I was on medical leave. I'm a watchdog, of course, you know that's who I am, for James Stevens, but I really want to let you know, even though I felt that you all gave us lemonade at the beginning of the year, lemons, we made lemonade, and we came out smelling good. Now, that relates to mental health and the issues that I've got concern for all of the schools in Lee County. I heard on the news that there's $2 million being allocated to help us to do better. I don't know how true that is, because some things are fake news, that's what the president says. But I'm hoping this is not fake news, that we do have the money there to help us get the resources that we need for children with those issues. And one other issue that I want to address is that while I was at the workshop for the city, their budget, I don't know whether you're going to be getting money from the city or not like you did last year. So I'm concerned about whether we're going to make sure we can do what the legislators mandated without the money. And last but not least, I'm very happy with your selection of the M-School principal. And I know you set the bar, she set the bar real high for the replacement, so I am sure that Dr. Atkins, you have really, really, really looked through and searched and found someone just like Ms. Watson to keep what's going on at Lehigh Middle School going. And thank you all for the opportunity to speak.
Maricella Morado.
For inviting me, Ms. Guinetta. I want to introduce and create a partnership with Lee County Schools. I work with the Department of Commerce, United States Census Bureau, Census 2020. We want to increase Lee County's 72% response rate and get it closer to 100% response rate. We know that in the year 2010, over 1 million children were not counted. So that is very impactful. We want to make sure that we prevent that by hopefully working together to develop solutions to effectively reach everyone and encourage them to respond to the 2020 census starting mid-March of 2020. To be able to do that, I want to be able to provide information to all the parents, the children, and that the census is not just about getting counted. It's about two things. It's about power and money. The power is it's used to accurately determine how many representatives each state has in Congress and inform the redrawing of congressional district boundaries. And then the money part is the data is used on the basis of distributing over $675 billion for the next 10 years, and that's each year. That's over $4 trillion in 10 years. And this money is used for federal funds annually to state, counties, and communities to support resources such as schools. It's also used to determine the allocation of programs such as Title I. And so the ways to be able to help is using a free statistics and school resource available curriculum to encourage teachers to just start educating the children that it's important to be counted. The only requirement to be counted is you be standing on US soil so that we can get the appropriate funding needed for Lee County. And the only way to do that is educating our children to then take that to their parents at home. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person would be Jamie Michael.
Hello, I'm Jamie Michael. I'm president of Lee County Support Personnel Association. In Lee County, the safety of our students are paramount to all employees. However, our legislature and now our Department of Education require districts to take on additional tasks without funding. The latest unfunded mandate is coming from the Department of Education, in which every bus driver and attendant must be CPR trained by August 2020. Will the state of Florida send the school districts funding for yet another unfunded mandate? My goal is that the community understands that there are unfunded mandates and we continue to work our way through those. Thank you.
And thank you. Charlie Fox, please.
It's Charla.
Charla. Apologize.
Chair, Board, Dr. Atkins, welcome back. We're looking forward to the start of a good year. Charla Fox. I wanted to continue on the vein of what Kevin Daly was talking on a little while ago. I know that surprises each and every one of you. When I have been talking with teachers and when I have been talking with the community, they have started to understand that the state is not necessarily going to fund us at the level we need to. We need to start having that conversation out in the public so that they can understand the different strictures that are out there and why we have need for it and why we need to go after the mill, say, instead of another half cent. I've had other people say, let's do another half cent. We could do that. And they don't understand the strictures and the reasons why that probably won't work with our current county commission. So I ask now that you stand up, that you start having that conversation, because we have got to go after it, because as Kevin said, to the north and to the south of us, they're starting at $45,000. That's their starting pay. Okay, they get a year or two under their belt here, they can go there and start at $45,000. And there are a lot of people that are having to do that because they can't afford to live here. I ask you to stand up with me on this. Thank you.
Crystal Johnson.
Good evening. I'm here today speaking as a concerned parent and advocate for my own children. I can tell you that I have 3 children that have IEPs, and things have just not been easy for me with these children and working with the schools and teachers. First of all, I have a child that has EBD that they do not buy into the IEP. They do not follow the rules in the beginning of the year, and that's a problem. So I also have a child who had an assessment that was done well over a year after I requested it. And when they did it, they told me that I could lose an exceptionality, which I did, although the assessment revealed that the IQ was extremely low. And then they wanted to convince me that we know that they're much smarter than that. And I agree. I agree that the IQ test is not right. However, why are we using that IQ test if we have no faith in it? And I'm just really concerned. I know personally that over the years, with my children in this district, I have had several cases where I could have come and filed a suit. And I chose not to, based on the fact that we need to be in public schools, and I don't want anybody to use that against me and my children when they go back to school after we sue. You understand? So I'm just here to tell you that some things are not right, and they need to get right, because I'm going to fight. And I'm trying really hard to get my children through this district and graduate and be successful. All I've asked is for them to be educated properly. We are entitled to a free, appropriate public education, and I want that for my children. Thank you.
Brandon Battle.
Good evening. My name is Brandon Bellows, and I am a 19-year-old recent graduate of Eastleigh County High School. I am a resident in District 5, and I voted in the last school board election. As a District 5 voter, I want to publicly communicate to my school board member my desire for the school board to investigate how the district deals with students with disabilities. As someone who's grown up in Fort Myers and been around a lot of students, I know that some of my friends struggle with their schoolwork and have learning disabilities. Many of my friends graduated with certificates of completion. What the school board does is very important. You all set the policy for what happens in our schools. If you all don't set good policies that direct the principals and teachers on how to deal with students with disabilities, it will really hurt us as we try to grow into adulthood. It is my understanding that the U.S. Department of Education Office of Civil Rights has twice found that the school district has violated students with disability rights, primarily minority students. Specifically, the case involving Gabrielle Perez, who attended Lexington Middle School. Ms. Perez was subjected to constant bullying and harassment, while no one from the district did anything to hold anyone accountable for the mistreatment of this student. I believe it is important that the school board orders an investigation as to how the superintendent and his administrators handles cases in which the district deals with individual education plans, harassment, bullying in the classroom, and how they put too many minority kids in special need classes. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak before you today.
And then last speaker is Anthony Thomas.
Good evening. My name is Anthony Thomas. I want to say that I want to associate myself with the comments of that young man, Mr. Brandon Battle. Let me say I've been around the school district for a long time. I'm not a hater. I'm not a disgruntled employee, and I'm not a deplorable. But I am someone who cares deeply about the school district and about our students. I have to say I'm deeply concerned with the direction of the current administration when it comes to dealing with students with disabilities. As Mr. Brandon said, we've had the ORC office of the U.S. Department of Education say that we are not doing what we need to be doing. Before Robert Dodick left, I had a school board member request to get a copy of all the lawsuits that had been settled by the Atkins administration. Robert Dodick sent that over to us, and it was almost $3 million that had been settled in lawsuits by the Atkins administration. Now, I don't know if you guys know this. Some of you guys are newbies. In the city of Fort Myers, in our municipalities, and even with our county commission, when they go and settle lawsuits, the board has to vote on it. But for some reason, even though you guys have a policy, and the policy states that the superintendent should come to you guys for anything over $50,000, apparently that doesn't apply to lawsuits. You all need to tweak this policy and make it in line with what you do when it comes to bidding process. The public needs to know what lawsuits that the superintendent is settling. Specifically with this Gabriella case, the superintendent is continuing to fight in this situation, which is baffling to me because you've already lost twice with the U.S. Department of Education. Now, Gwen, you heard one of your constituents say, I live in Debbie Jordan's district. I want to know what the heck is going on here. We've spent over, according to an email that I received from Alberto Rodriguez, who's a former distinguished deputy superintendent of Lee County Schools, we've spent over $150,000 on this lawsuit. From my understanding, according to the email that I received, the people are asking for $50,000. Now, I'm not a great mathematician, but I did graduate with Lee County Schools. I don't know how you can spend over $150,000 you've brought on the Henderson and Franklin law firm. I can tell you, as somebody who's been around Fort Myers a long time, that's a very expensive law firm. They charge a lot of money per hour, and I don't know what we're going to be getting with spending this money. So, Madam Chairman, please direct your superintendent to publicly address.
Sir, you have 30 seconds.
I know how much time I got. Please have your superintendent address for the public what we're doing with the Henderson and Franklin law firm, specifically with this Gabriella case, and how we're going to make sure. I know when you guys had your complaint that was exonerated, or you didn't get exonerated, they told you what you needed to do. With that, my time has expired. Thank you.
Is that
Madam
it?
Chair, that's all the people we have who signed up.
Okay, just briefly, I will go through. First of all, thank you to all of you who came tonight, and especially those that addressed the board with your thoughts and your comments. One thing I say all the time to our public and our taxpayers, if you want to know what's going on in this school district, attend the meetings, watch the meetings, participate in the meetings. If you don't participate and know what's happening, then you cannot complain about what's going on if you don't participate. Mr. Scott, thank you for the lesson on the rule of law and our safety controls, and I am not privy to discuss anything about the John Eastern thing or the purse strings. I will say that there were some fallacies in what you said about settlements, but thank you for voicing your opinion. Mr. Navarro, I must say you are tenacious. We will hear about the half-cent tax and your portion of it, and thank you for being tenacious about it. Superintendent, one of the questions that he came up with was how much penalty there is for the class size amendment. Can you address that at all? Are we over at times, and have we chosen to go ahead and have more students and then pay the penalty, or how is that working?
Well, the last time that really became an issue was out on Pine Island, and I think that, and I'm looking at Amy or Kelly, and I might need some help with this one, but that was the only one that I'm aware of recently where we were over the class size. And if you think about Pine Island, a little bit over, it's a barrier island, so it doesn't fall in the same parameters as the rest of the district does, where the rest of the district is in a choice, we're part of the choice system, and because of that, we can go by the school-wide average. In the case of Pine Island, we looked at it from what's the best thing to do for students, and if we were to divide that classroom out at Pine Island, you'd have two extremely small classrooms, but you wouldn't have been able to equip those or have a person assigned there that was an experienced teacher because of the timing of it. Now, there for a while, I thought we were going ahead and paying the penalty, but I found out later that they actually were able to not have to pay that penalty, and so we were held harmless in that case. So to my knowledge, I think we continue to be making the class size, so we don't have to pay that class size penalty. Again, it's very fortunate that we are a choice district, which allows us to go by that district average.
Okay, thank you. One other thing for Mr. Navarra, you mentioned lights at bus stops. We are working with cities and municipalities about putting in lights, and I know it was Cape Coral that just had spent the $100,000 to put in lights, and it was working in conjunction with the school board, the school district, and putting the lights where we have permanent bus stops so that it wouldn't be just wasted. Mr. Daly, thank you for advocating for our teachers and staff and for their pay, and thank you for your comments. When we're talking about budget, our previous meeting at 5 o'clock, we talked about the budget. Again, I ask and say to you all, if you want to know about how the money is being spent, watch the workshops and the special meetings about the budget. Go online and pull it up. You can look at it line by line, and then you can have questions, give us questions if you have some. Ms. Ware, Superintendent, I heard briefly about that $2 million. Are you aware of that, what that is?
Not exactly aware of exactly what she's talking about, which specific. I mean, there's a lot of different things. It could be the mental health allocation.
It was a grant, mental health allocation? That's what it was.
Okay.
Okay. Did you have any comments on that?
Well, just that if you remember, I think Lori Brooks came and briefed the board on some of the ways that those dollars were being used. One of the, and she actually got up and addressed our leadership team just today. But one of the things that's very important relative to the $2 million allocation for mental health is it allows us to focus on one of the most important things, and that's attendance, obviously, and having social. So we're able to employ, I believe, 10 more social workers. So we're actually, able to get them out into the schools in our communities. In fact, you may recall that one of our support personnel of the year was one of these social workers down in Bonita. These people are critical to getting our students in school because the more that they're in school, the more they're going to learn, obviously. This also allows us to, I think, improve our partnerships with our outside providers such as Salus Care, provide more psychologists. So all these dollars are critically important, I think, to helping a huge need in this community, which is mental health. So I think that's what you were referring to. And so what I would say to that is these are dollars that the state has allocated specifically for this reason. So if you do get an opportunity to talk to a legislator locally, I would express appreciation, and this is something that we need to continue. I mean, we all know the importance of mental health and the great need here in Lee County and also in Florida, so.
Thank you. Ms. Morado, did I say it correctly? Or close, huh? I was at a Lehigh Chamber event this afternoon, and I met her, and I said, well, why don't you come? Because we can never hear enough about being counted. It is so important to all of us that we count every eligible citizen in this census that's coming up. And Ms. Morado, what I'm going to ask you, Ms. Vaughn is our liaison for the census. Raise your hand, wave at her, okay? So after the meeting, maybe you can connect with her, and she can give you some more information on what we're doing in that vein. But thank you for coming. Ms. Michael, thank you for that update. I know CPR training is important. And we all know that. However, the issue of unfunded mandates just never seems to go away. It just continues to grow. Ms. Fox, state funding we're going to have our, and this is something I was going to say later on to the board members, on August 8th, we'll be formulating our legislative agenda for the year in a workshop, and I will inform you guys about that, August the 8th. So if you are available to even sit in and, or watch it and see what we're doing, and you will see what some of our legislative agendas are. And again, I ask the public, you know, we come up with ideas and things and legislative agendas that we see, but we represent you. So if you have some things that we don't have on our mind, make sure you let your district representative know, or someone on the board, I'd like to see this on the legislative agenda. Ms. Johnson, concerned parent, and Dr. Atkins, is there any way to follow up with someone on the IEP situation?
Yeah, I can speak to Jessica Duncan and get back with the board.
And we have the number for her, so.
Yes, we
Okay,
do.
and thank you for coming, Ms. Johnson. Randy Battle from Lehigh? You from Lehigh? Okay, you said east, okay, all right. Well, thank you for coming, and the subject, of course, on the disabilities, students with disabilities is near and dear to my heart. When I looked at the grades, and I mentioned this the other day at a workshop, the school grades directly correlate to the students, the disadvantaged students. The higher the percentage of disadvantaged students, the lower the school grade was. And you can look that up on DOE with our grade. The A schools had like 30 to 40% disadvantage. So one of the things that I'd spoken with the superintendent about, we're working on proximity and how can we equalize the numbers of students with disabilities, with the level 1s and 2s, and make it a little more equitable. So we are working on that. Superintendent, you have anything you want to add to that?
Something that as we're moving forward, if we're able to go to a proximity-based student assignment system, I think that we will actually be able to improve equity district-wide. We've seen this happen in other school districts, and in addition to improving equity district-wide, we also have the capability of reducing our transportation costs, because you're talking about transporting students to schools that are closer to them. Also, if you're going into a neighborhood like, let's say, Tanglewood Whiskey Creek, which I believe has something like 14 elementary schools that go into that particular neighborhood, you're going to reduce that significantly, so you're going to reduce transportation costs. So it's really a win-win. However, this is very complicated, so that's why we've engaged a consultant to help us do this work, and Ms. Ebal and the planning team in operations are moving forward with that as we speak, and we will continue to update the board and the public.
And the public, thank you. Mr. Thomas, questions about our lawsuits? I really don't have a comment to tell you, but if all of the information should be out there, and like you said, you have received some of the information, and I guess I can say, if any member of the public feels there's something that's inequitable and it's within means, then make sure that you make your voice known. That's what America's about. I feel it's really important to do this. I know some people say, okay, we have public comment and then we should just go on. It's important for us to hear you so we know what the public is doing. I think it's very important to hear the superintendent and others respond to the questions of individuals in the audience, because if one person has that question, 100 people have that same question. So thank you to those who came and spoke, because you're representing others and getting answers to questions that we need in the community. Okay, moving on. Sorry. Okay, approval of consent items. Am I in the right spot? Okay. Next is the approval of consent action items in the agenda under consent. And I will remind the public that if you would come to a meeting or prior to coming to a meeting, we have the agendas placed on they have to be online 7 days before the meeting. So you can look on there and look at agenda items and see if there's something that you're very interested in and want to participate. The documentation for action items listed under consent is made available to board members 7 days prior to the board meeting. We're expected to review all the material, and we have an opportunity to speak with the superintendent and with any questions we may have regarding the recommendations. Some of the items we've also briefed or workshopped with the board in advance and appearing on the action agenda. Board members, are there any items you wish to pull from the agenda for discussion under unfinished and table items? And let me just say to the board members, at one point we had difficulty because on board docs, if you pull an item and Ms. Johnson moves it down to the next section, it would change the number of it, which was very confusing. So what we're doing now is she's going to leave it in its spot. So if you're pulling like K1, she won't take it out and move it down because it would change the number of it. And we'll work that out with board docs later on. Are there any items to be pulled? Ms. Fisher?
Yes, E1 and E18.
E1 and E18.
Yes.
Ms. Giovanelli?
F2.
F2. Ms. Patrica?
D2.
D2. Ms. Jordan?
No.
Ms. Vaughn?
No.
Ms. Morgan?
I have none.
And I have none. So let us move down to, we're going to a motion to approve the agenda consent items with the exception of E1, E18, F2, and D2. May I have a motion to accept the agenda items with those exceptions?
So moved.
Okay, Ms. Fisher, and seconded by Ms. Giovanelli. Please record your vote, electronic. And the motion passes 7-0. So let's move to the first pulled item, which is E1. And Ms. Fisher, you want to go ahead and discuss?
Yes, so it's the approval of the 2019-2020 School District of Lee County Mental Health Allocation Plan. And I just wanted to pull this for discussion. I wanted to offer thanks to Ms. Brooks and her team for all the work that they have done on this plan. And I wanted to mention to the listening audience that Florida is the least funded nation for mental health in the country, and Lee County is second to last in the state of Florida. So even though we have this allocation now and partnerships with our local agencies, the need is greater than the resources still. And so we really need to take a look at that. And there's questions about, is this funding just for this year, or is it sustainable? Or how do we sustain it if we don't get this money again next year? So I just wanted to mention something that I've been talking about for many years, and I know Mrs. Morgan knows what it is. Some of the mandates from the state regarding the mental health implementation are one and done, and some issues that are contained in our comprehensive health education policy and the state curriculum. So if we were to implement the comprehensive health education, we would be able to cover physical, mental, and emotional and social health. We would be able to motivate students to improve and maintain their health, prevent disease and risky behaviors. So I think that I just wanted to mention that to keep it on the forefront so that the superintendent won't forget about it. And that's all I have to say about that.
Okay. Is there a motion for the pulled item?
So moved.
Second.
And seconded, Ms. Fisher, Ms. Giovanelli. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any other discussion on the pulled item?
I guess my last comment is I will be supporting it.
Okay, okay. Well, that's good. We kind of figured that maybe. Okay, so if there's no discussion, then I believe this is a verbal vote.
Yes.
Yes, sir? Okay. So this will be a verbal vote because it was a poll. So all of those in favor of this motion, E1, please,
favor.
I'm sorry?
Just say aye.
Just say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed?
Any opposed? Okay, so
Opposed.
it passes. All right, before I go on to the next one, I did not offer the opportunity for anyone that wanted to leave after public comment or anything to do so. We still have the other, we didn't announce the HR piece, right?
Right.
And that was already in consent. So we passed that. So do you want to go ahead and do the HR?
Consent?
Well, it was in the consent items that we just passed, correct?
Yes.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right.
So first, I'm very pleased to announce Liam Farrell, Cypress Lake High School teacher, to Lehigh Senior High School assistant principal. Please stand. Next appointment, Jason Kurtz, East Ely County High School assistant principal to exceptional student education coordinator, ESE. Appointment, Tim Bureau, East Lee County High Assistant Principal. Next change of assignment, Anne Marie Ferry, Curriculum Instruction Specialist, Content to Coordinator Teaching and Learning. Next one, and I think this one answers a question that Ms. Ware had. This is new principal of Lehigh Acres Middle School, Brian Gibson. It's not on the agenda, but it was approved with the budget. Jim Short, Director, Information Security Assurance. This one, superstars in the back of the room, Manny LaFelice. He was a Diplomat Middle Assistant Principal, now Transportation Services, Senior Administrator of Transportation Services. Next one, Clayton Simmons, Estero High School, now School Development Executive Director, Leadership Development. Announced she's not here because she's out of town, but April Thompson, Lehigh Acres Middle Teacher to Varsity Lakes Middle Assistant Principal. Next one, James Buchanan, Transportation Services Senior Administrator to Lee County Jail Price Halfway House DJJ Principal. So thank you very much for allowing me. These are some great people, and I know they're going to do great work for our district.
Ms. Ware is beaming. Okay. All right. If anyone wants to leave, or I don't see why, because this is such riveting information that we're doing. But if you choose to leave at this point, we'll take a 1-minute break for you to do so. And congratulations. Okay, I think we're back on. Moving on to the pulled items, E18, and Ms. Fisher, can you explain?
Thank you. Okay, so E18 is the approval of the grant proposal for for the Learning for Life grant fiscal year 2019-2020. Wow. So I just wanted to comment on that, a little bit of discussion. I've had an opportunity to be involved with the Learning for Life program for probably 20 years, and all of that time, they have provided services to the district through this ongoing grant through the state legislature, performing character ed, substance abuse and bullying prevention, and Explorer clubs and posts. So I just wanted to mention that that is an awesome support for our PBIS and our positive prevention programs, and it's at no cost to the district ever. So I just wanted to advocate a little bit for that, and I will be supporting it. Thank you.
Okay, comment. Well, let me do this and we'll get to discussion, and then I can call on you. Is that okay? Okay, the motion was, is there a motion for the pulled item as well?
Second.
Motion to
Motion
approve
to approve.
this item.
Yeah, motion to
Yes.
approve this.
And I seconded it.
Okay, so Ms. Fisher and Ms. Giovanelli. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion now, Ms. Giovanelli?
Thank you. I too will be supporting this tonight. I'm very supportive of Learning for Life, and I'd like to see it out in more of our schools. So I ask a lot of, when I meet people, I ask if that program is in their school, and it's not in every school. So I'd like to see that happen. Tina Pegler does a great job in getting the funding for that besides this grant, because this is actually what is used in the schools, this money, and then she has the talent show, and that's when I do the talent show. So I want more schools involved, and East Lee is not one of them, and so that is, I've been asking, and that's one of the things I want to see is it at East Lee, because I think it's be very good support for them. So, but I'll support it tonight.
Okay, other discussion about Learning for Life?
I believe it's also a great program, been involved with it, and I definitely will support it.
Okay, let's take the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And it passes. Our next pulled item was F2, and that's Ms. Giovanelli. Could you explain to us?
Yeah, this item actually is the resolution authorizing for issuance of certificates of participation series 2019A to finance all portion of the costs of the construction and any equipping of the new senior high school MMM and Fort Myers, and renovating existing facilities and construction and equipping in the Lehigh Senior High School in Lehigh Acres. I had a few questions regarding this, and Mr. Ford actually answered a lot of it for me during the break that we had, and it was very informative, and I would love for him to come and address just a question for me for the public to know. And my question is, Mr. Ford, can you explain why we would use this method in financing? Because there's a lot of people, when the tax referendum was passed, people assume that yes, it was to pay taxes, pay down debt and build schools, but people forget that this is, in fact, building schools and paying down debt. And I know we're accumulating more debt, but I think that it's important for the community to understand.
And before you do, we need to go ahead and take it to the discussion point, or should he speak at this point?
He will speak, if you were going to take his testimony information, he will speak
And then
before
we'll
discussion. Discussion amongst the board members.
Okay, okay.
So I'm going to allow 3 minutes.
Yes, and I totally agree with the fact that he is here. There is a lot of confusion about it and questions in the community, so this will be very helpful, and thank you for coming.
Yes.
To answer those
Welcome.
questions.
I have to admit, I was a little bit hurt when you sort of dissed all of these items as being just riveting. You know, this is my life. But
you see how you captured the audience, right?
I did. The room emptied. That being said, Ms. Giovanelli, thank you for your question. It's an excellent question. A couple of things to keep in mind. One, under state law, and there are a number of lawyers in the room that can correct me if I'm wrong, but before you can let a construction contract, you have to have the funds in place in order to let that contract. So at this point in time, you have not collected enough in your sales tax dollars to be able to let the contract for the construction of the two projects. That's very simple. So there was clear indication from before the ballot language went out, which by the way includes language allowing the payment, the issuance of bonds and the payment of debt service, that on a one-time basis, that there very well might be a bond issue that was repaid from sales tax collections. It was planned on being a sales tax revenue bond issue, but after the referendum, after this was passed, and midway through working on this transaction for this one-off financing, the legislature ended and they introduced a bill called, they signed a bill called Senate Bill 7070, and that bill contained a number of changes in state law which inhibited your use, your direct use of those dollars to pay for that school unless the facilities were under a lease purchase agreement, okay? That meant that just issuing regular sales tax bonds wouldn't work, and so we got together with 4 different law firms, with your school board attorney's firm, with Mr. Bob Gang, who is your bond counsel here with Greenberg Traug, with your disclosure counsel and with underwriters counsel, and we said, is there a pathway through this? And collectively, we found a single pathway, and that was that we could issue it under the COP authorization under state law, but we could make the payments come from sales taxes as we had always planned to do. We could also, unlike your COPs in the past, which went out 20 to 25 years, shorten it to the same term that we would have used had it been a sales tax revenue bond. So it may be a COP, but it has the characteristics of a sales tax revenue bond. It will only go out to August 1st of 2028. By the way, all of the rest of your remaining COPs will be matured by August 1st, 3036. So they have a very short life and they're dwindling every year. And that is the reason for this essentially. We do not have a pathway through state law right now to issue them as sales tax bonds, but we can make the COP look as much like a sales tax bond as possible in terms of its amortization and structure, and that's what we're doing here. Does that answer your question?
Yes. So I'm a realtor, so I understand the financing aspect of that, and I understand, I mean, to build a house, you're going to have to, you don't have the money now to pay for it, so unless you pay cash, and obviously we can't do that. Well, I think we're a little cash poor right now. So, but I mean, I think with the tax referendum and accumulating the money over time, we can pay for it. My concern, is this discussion or not yet?
No. Not between the
Okay,
boards.
so thank you.
Okay, so you can stay there, I think. So we go ahead and do the motion, and then we'll have discussion.
That's correct.
He can still comment if we have.
Well, that's at the board's
Right, okay.
discussion. You know, it's at
Okay,
your choice to do that, to allow for questions to be asked.
Okay, so the motion has been pulled, and can I have a motion, approval in a second
So
for the
moved.
motion? So Ms., okay, that was Ms. Morgan? Okay, so it's Ms. Fisher and Ms. Morgan, and it's been moved and seconded. Now we can go into discussion.
Okay, so I am going to support this tonight. However, my concern has been that I thought this about this, the Envision 2030, and what will debt look like in 2030? I want to make sure that when this sunsets at 28, that we don't go into another tax referendum, and our students that are in school right now are paying for this debt in 2030. I mean, that's my concern, is that we really have to look at, because if we start doing COPs on every new school that we have planned to build, that's alarming to me. So I just want to be very conscientious of the financing, and hopefully when we get the revenue, tax revenue, that we can pay for some schools cash when we have it. So I will support it tonight, but that is my concern, and I wanted the board to know that I'm worried about the future of 2030. So I don't want to be in debt down the road. I want to be debt-free, so if we can, or as close as possible.
I'll get to you in 1 second. Anyone else on this end have comments or questions? No? Ms. Fisher?
No, I would just ask that Mr. Ford would address that concern, because I think you did at the workshop yesterday, to some degree. Thank you.
So as sort of an overall comment, let me say, I think part of the confusion comes in here because you were used to doing COPS in one fashion and it was long-term debt, and now all of a sudden we flipped it on its head to be relatively much shorter-term debt, and there's a concern that if we did this again, the debt might stretch out again. So our goal as your advisors would be that every project that can be done on a pay-as-you-go basis, that you, one, have the money to do on a pay-as-you-go basis, and two, state law will allow you to use that money in that way as a pay-as-you-go basis, that you do it that way. One of the smartest comments I ever heard was by a retired Moody's senior analyst named John Inkervaya, and he looked at a school district I was working with in 1993 that had $1 billion construction fund deficit, and he said, no one ever borrowed their way into prosperity. and I believe that. So frequently the best choice to finance is to not use a financing vehicle. So anytime that you can and we can evaluate and say, yes, do this pay-as-you-go, that's exactly what we want to do. If you have to borrow because of legal constraints or design constraints, to the extent that sales tax revenues are available to pay for those borrowings, we would always recommend that they do not go out further than that 2020 date, as long as sales tax monies are available to pay for them, unless you had some unknown situation that came up that would change that. But looking at it from today's perspective, that's what we would do. And it may be that we would recommend it even be shorter than that 2028 date, depending upon the options and the financial tools that we had available for us. Our goal would to be minimize any interest cost and to not stretch out your debt.
Thank you. So I encourage all Northerners to come here as soon as you can and help us pay our schools.
So my question is, that I keep hearing from the community is, of course, we were told if we get the sales tax, we don't have to borrow. So, and I know you've explained it, the average reading level in the United States today is 6th grade level. So, if you can explain it in that way. The way I have it is that we were told if we got the tax, we didn't have to borrow. However, because of 70/70, we could not use the tax money the way we wanted to. So the only way then to complete buildings such as Lehigh Senior and MMM would be to take this out as COPS.
Okay. So I am not contradicting anything you're saying. I simply want to back up. And from my perspective, we have had discussions for the last year and a half that said there is a potential that to get the very first project out of the ground, we might need to borrow money in order to let the contract for that first project, but that going forward from there, PAYGO would take over. Okay. And if we could find a way not to borrow for the first project, we would. So my comments are restricted to that first project. You need to get it out of the ground. You need to let the contract. You don't have the collections in hand to do that. So you need money in order to let the contract, in order to open it when you need to open it. So that requires a financing at this point. We had always intended to do a straight up sales tax revenue bond transaction until the legislature threw a curve at us. We're in a position where none of us wanted to be, because everybody has basically had to structure this transaction twice now before getting it into the market, and we worked very hard to try to figure out how not to do this. But this is the single pathway that your legal group has identified, and we have worked with them in doing that, and we believe that we are doing it in a way that makes the cost differential, any cost differential between the two, very, very small because of its short term.
Okay, so in future, I'm going to suggest when this tape goes up, that we look at what minute you started that and what minute you ended that. And when we're out talking to the public, refer them to your definition so that it's very clear and easy for them to understand.
That's fine. If you don't mind, if I just make one final comment. We don't know what the legislature is going to do in the next session.
Right.
We don't know what they're going to throw at you, and we may end up back here saying, if you want to get here, you have to start on this path. The road has changed. So we can't state with assurance that you'll be able to do everything on a pay-go basis, but that is certainly our hope.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Okay, we've moved and seconded, had discussion. All those in favor of this motion, please respond with aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, and it passes. Thank you so much. The final one is D2, and Ms. Patrica, please explain.
Pulling item D2, approval of board member travel to the Greater Florida Consortium of School Boards, GFCSB 2019 Annual Legislative Meeting. Per our discussion at yesterday's workshop, after it is moved and seconded, I will simply ask to table the item until our next meeting, pending approval or adoption of a legislative platform and an understanding of our roles as board members in the legislative process.
Okay, is there a motion for this pull?
So moved.
Ms. Jordan seconded.
Second.
Ms. Fisher? It's been moved and seconded, so let's move into discussion.
Move that we table this item.
Okay, can we still have discussion at this point?
Well, there needs to be a second. If there's no second, then it dies and it goes on back to the original motion.
Second.
So there was a second for the table?
Second from Ms.
Discussion on the table.
Okay. Anyone want to go first on discussion? Okay, I will say, I spoke with Ms. Green yesterday after our workshop, and she was, Dr. Atkins, she was going to meet with your team, was it today or no, on the 15th?
On the
correct?
15th, yes,
Okay.
that's correct.
But I did discuss this with her as far as our legislative agenda. And she will be meeting with us in a workshop on August the 8th. And I believe, Jennifer, is that already on? It's on the calendar for August the 8th to discuss it. My concern is that the 15th is when we go to the consortium. And this item is basically just for the travel, to approve the travel. And if later on we decided not to go, then it can, be canceled. However, I don't see the difficulty in it just approving the travel. And then on the 8th, we will have our legislative items completed. Ms. Green said that it's her goal then at that meeting to walk out and have us have our list prepared. On the 15th, she's meeting with the superintendent and his staff. So they will be discussing their legislative items as well, so.
That is correct.
Okay. So I think my opinion is to approve the travel at this point, have our discussion on the 8th. When we do, if we do attend on the 15th at the consortium, and then we are able to come back and still talk with the superintendent about what his staff came up with as well, and gather information at the consortium. So I think it's a ongoing process, but we will have, the other thing I forgot to mention, she is working on a couple of dates and will give us that by the end of this week as to when to have our legislative meeting with the legislators. And if we recall, I know the three of us didn't start on the board until November of last year, and we had our legislative meeting in November. I know we want to have it as soon and as early as possible, and we are working on that, but I find that every time something comes up, there's different things that we can add. So we need to, on the 8th, talk about, what we really want to have in there, what is really important. Yes.
Madam Chair, I believe one of the concerns that did come up as well was just making sure the money was in place to be able to secure reservations.
Yes.
So, if you go back at a later date, you may
It's going to be more
incur larger
costly.
costs, so.
Or not even have the reservations.
Right. The other piece of clarification that when we set the meeting with Ms. Green relative to the staff, we're including the recommendations that the board has to be able to really try to refine those. Now, at the time that we set that meeting, we didn't realize that you were going to move off to the Greater Florida Consortium on the same day, or we would have made that earlier. But, so we're not coming up with anything over and above really what the board has come up with, but we're trying to refine it and then also provide additional data and persuasive argument to what has been submitted to this point.
Okay. So that was my comments. Anyone else have any comments about it? Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I agree with what you said, because what we have found in the past, if we wait to make a reservation for some of these things, put in a different hotel or have to pay a higher price for like a deluxe room. So I think we can do what you said and approve the money, and then if something happens, that we can always cancel.
And the other comment that I have, I watched the meeting on the 15th of July as well, and there are a lot of comments about and concerns of board members that other board members are representing the board as a whole. And it's like that's coming across like the fear of us going to anything legislative. And I believe that we all have the ability to discuss legislative things and it not necessarily be that I'm representing the board. If I, as an elected official or a board member, talk about something that's on our legislative agenda, we've already decided on that agenda, so I'm not overstepping bounds. I just see the situation of going as helpful to our cause to know more about what's happening in the state. And this is just for travel. It is not for anything else. Any other comments? Yes, ma'am.
Well, it's my understanding that whoever would attend would be submitting our legislative priorities to the Greater Florida, South Florida Consortium, so that it becomes part of their legislative priority package.
Is that something that's in
The
writing?
goal of the meeting. I mean, it's not just to go down to Key West and have a good time.
No,
We have a meeting
I
there
understand
to put our input in, to provide them with
what we're thinking.
With ideas for legislative priorities. Right.
That will be available because on August 8th, we will have ours done?
Because they're looking at what we're looking at for, as far as state is concerned, as well as our local,
Right.
what our issues are here locally.
So adding our input to what they're doing.
And getting their feedback as well.
Yes. Other comments? Yes, ma'am.
I think that 5 people is significant overkill for attendance at this meeting. Having been to it for 2 years, one person is overkill for this meeting, to be honest with you. It really is just a matter of, I mean, frequently all they do is sit in a room and wordsmith. It is not in my estimation, efficient or good use of our travel dollars to have 5 people go. And I was hoping actually to have that discussion during our workshop and sort of clarify our roles, as I mentioned earlier, with regard to legislative advocacy.
Yes.
But for me, I understand what you're saying. However, if you're not there to hear what the conversation, you may not understand where what their agenda is. And the consortium does have their own agenda, and but it is collaboratively done in a room full of people. And I think the comprehension and the understanding is why I would be there, so I understand how they got to that actual platform and their, you know, where they're at, where they're going with it. And it's important for me to hear that and understand it.
Yes, ma'am.
So then, maybe I'll suggest this. Number one, we will have one person be the representative at that meeting to provide that information, not that everybody else can attend. And if I do attend, which I am planning to do, I will pay my own way. I will not take money from the board budget.
Well, Ms. Patrica brought up the fact that you have attended several times, so maybe those of us that have not attended should have the opportunity. And I also noticed when I listened and rewatched the meeting on the 15th, and it was discussed about having one liaison person, and I watched it again last night, and it was not something that was accepted by everyone. There were the people that were there basically said they did not want to have one person representing. And the discussion was that the attorneys would look at other areas that have a similar thing, and there is none. So, yes.
So technically, when we attend that meeting, one person will have the word and a vote.
Right.
One person from each county.
What I wanted to discuss on the
Right,
8th.
so, yeah, okay. So either way, one
Again, you know,
person is
like,
going to be the
reason-
spokesperson.
The reason why I was the one that went was because I was the legislative liaison for the board. And
Right.
technically, I should be the one who's going on August 15th, but when I saw that so many other people were signed up, I'm not assuming that expense for the district when, again, it's overkill. Kathleen, Ms. Morgan, if I may,
Well, excuse me,
if I
excuse
may
me,
make
no.
a request for information,
Okay,
please?
in just a moment. Ms. Vaughn had her hand up.
Yeah, we've been talking about August 8th, but it says that the proposals are due by the 1st of August.
What proposals?
Look at the bottom of that handout.
The attachment.
Yeah, and we've also missed our opportunity to participate in the FSBA platform.
And if it,
Because that data's come and gone.
yeah, so I don't know if they're going to accept these late, but August 8th or whenever, we're going to be late with that. And if it helps, I didn't sign up to go. So that's 6. I don't know who else didn't sign up, but.
And Ms. Patrica, you said in the meeting on the 15th that you technically are still the liaison until November, which is true because that's when we elect or select our new liaisons to different things. So I guess we would have supposed that you would have gone ahead and done these things. I mean, why did we miss these deadlines, or so we are not going to be able to participate in this?
Madam Chair, I have been requesting a workshop for our legislative platform since before this past legislative session ended.
And we did have one, in which Ms. Green and Ashley were both here. So is this information, though, just basically based on us having our legislative platform?
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question.
The information that we're looking at here, is that based on us having our platform in order to participate in this? And Ms. Giovanelli had her hand up.
Well, Ms. Fisher, I know you said that it's one vote, but I distinctly remember all of us voting in a room on several things. It wasn't.
No, at the consortium, when they finalize the priorities for the consortium, each county gets one vote. Each county gets one vote, no matter how many people are there. So technically, only one person needs to be the spokesperson.
So, Madam Chair, if I could just kind of redirect you. The item that's on the floor right now, well, obviously is the table.
Is the table.
But the bigger conversation is to allow, I'll call it up to 5 people to travel expense to go to this meeting. So as was already discussed, was the opportunity that if you have your legislative workshop on the 8th, that you could decide then who, what, and where as part of the priority discussion. And you don't need to worry about that now. The item that is being asked is to allow for there to be approval of committing for travel up to 5 people. If less,
Where does it, I'm sorry, where does it say up to 5 people?
it says 5, but if only 4 go, then only 4 go.
Where? What line?
It doesn't.
It says approval to pay for 5, but
Bottom.
the recommended action is approval to pay for 5.
Okay, I'm just looking at
Yeah.
that handout.
So what I'm saying is, I'm reading that to say is up to 5 people to
Okay.
attend. If you decided at the legislative workshop that 3 are who's going to go, the 2 are going to go, 1's going to go, 5 are going, that would be that discussion that you'd have. But you'd have a place for those 5 people to attend, and that's what the
And it's a
agenda item is
placeholder.
at the moment.
Right.
So that's what I need to also clarify. The motion to table was to a time certain to the date of August 8th?
Our next board meeting, we can't take action on August 8th.
Okay. So then, well, the next board meeting was the
August 13th.
August
But I
13th.
just wanted to clarify that, so when you're voting for the motion to table, you know what you're voting for.
Okay, so you're saying we need to vote for that motion to table it until
It's on the
the
floor, properly
15th first,
seconded.
before we do the other?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
May I make a request for information to Member
Yes,
Morgan?
ma'am.
Yes.
As a former president of the consortium, can you weigh in, please?
Yeah, so as former president of the consortium, first, there's only one vote.
Okay, thank you.
And historically, until I got on the board, typically only one person went. And as we've brought new board members on, we have encouraged new board members to attend. I share Ms. Fisher's perspective, though, that we have asked people across the district to make cuts in schools and to make cuts in their offices. And while I plan to attend, I am not going to bill the district for my attendance either. I think this is a conversation we need to have as a board. There is only one vote, and other people are welcome to attend, FYI, so.
So like when we voted on having the accounting, that really, remember in the room, that was in Tampa, we voted on the account, then when they did the accounting, we shouldn't have voted then, only had one vote, right? That's why I'm getting so confused.
Oh, I know. It's very casual.
Okay.
But
That's
the
why.
recorded vote is one vote by
per
county.
county.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor to table this until August 13th at our next board meeting. Although on August 8th, we are having our legislative meeting with our lobbyist to discuss and compile our legislative agenda. So my thought is, yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
So then the issue is, if we table this on the 13th, we will vote about the approval of the money to go, okay? So that's the only issue here.
Right, and the event, though,
priorities
is
and
on the
every- And the
15th.
content,
Can we?
right. It's very simple. So we just table it, vote on it on the 13th, after we've had our discussion on the 8th, and we know all the details. And potentially, I would say, we might end up with one representative charging the district for travel, and the rest of us paying our own way.
So that's what the superintendent was saying, though, too. If we just approve the travel piece, it is up to 5 people. We decide on the 8th if that's going to be the case. But we don't know how that's going to affect travel, as far as the payment or having reservations and all
It's
that.
all done, so we don't have to worry about that.
Well, it's It's done, but we have to pay for it. I mean, we have to say that we're going to.
It's not, well, I think we need to, yeah.
We'll have to cancel.
Because
They're there, we can cancel.
there's reservations in place right now in the name of the district. If you fail to take action, whether the district, the superintendent may not maintain or those same reservations, he may have to let them go. When's payment due?
Well, that's the thing, to say we're not going to make payment
just to be
until the
clear, I want to make
13th.
sure that
think it's
you're
already
not giving
paid.
away something or not. That's what the question, huh? Can you wait? Anybody, when's the hotel reservation have to be paid for or addressed?
Well, the 13th is 2 days before the event, that's all I'm saying.
It's probably already paid for.
I
Yeah,
believe it is.
A credit card has been already given.
Yeah, normally what they would do is they hold a deposit, they don't charge it, they just hold that, and when you cancel, then they just release it back.
But the point is that if you wait till the last 2 days before the event, in all probability, you're going to be charged something for, you have 5 rooms that you're giving up. That's the question.
No, because we're holding 5 rooms. and
That's the clarification. I
2
just wanted
days
you to know.
beforehand.
Whatever your vote is, it is, but you just have to know what might be the consequences of
I
that
move to
vote.
withdraw my motion to table and call the vote.
Okay, would you restate your,
I move to withdraw my motion to table.
So the table's off. Now we go back to the main motion, which is to approve the item.
Travel.
is that correct, Ms. Patrick? Okay. So, all those in favor then of approving the travel, or is there more discussion? Go ahead.
I'll ask later. All right, I just thought of something else, but.
No discussion.
Okay, so all those in favor of approving the travel part, at
As
least at this
recommended.
point, the recommended travel for the consortium at this point, respond with aye?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, then the motion passes. Okay, we move on to, see, I did do the attendance first, but anyway. Okay, now we have to do a recess for a school board leasing corporation meeting. And we'll now recess the regular school board meeting at this time and go into the leasing corporation agenda. As president of the Lee County School Board Leasing Corporation, I would like to call this meeting of July 30th, 2019 to order. The time is 7:33. And I'm asking for approval of the agenda. The agenda includes public comment, 3 secretaries' recommendations, and other business and adjournment. Do I hear a motion for adoption of this agenda?
So moved.
Ms. Fisher, second.
Second.
Ms. Morgan, there's a motion to adopt the agenda and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries for the agenda. We will now have public comment. Mr. Gabriel, please address the agenda item of public comment.
Yes, school board policy provides that the opportunity at this point in the meeting for members of the public to address the board concerning this particular subject matter, the cops. Time is permitted. I have 1 card that has been submitted, so that'll be for 3 minutes for that speaker.
Okay, and is there anyone on my right that has not submitted a card? Anyone on the left that has not submitted? Please proceed with the 1 card.
Yes, that would be Randy Scott.
This is for the leasing corporation?
Yes, sir.
Which is the creative entity in order to deal with finances when you want to keep it an arm's length distance. But as you know, you're all pretty much the same people. Gwen has mentioned that we need to pay attention, and we do pay attention. We inform, we enlighten, and we acknowledge the things we see here. And we remind you that a couple months ago, we were talking about tax anticipation notes. And I will remind you, back in November, after the sales tax referendum was passed, I penned a couple letters. One was about the fraudulent application of the voting instructions on the ballot. That letter that I penned to you, Ms. Gittens, never was responded to, but it was also sent to Ford, your finance advisor. It was also sent to some bond markets. I advised them that there's a problem with the referendum. And when there's a problem with the bond market, with a potential referendum issue, it shies them away from it. In 2012, when Ms. Desimore was the chief financial officer back then, there was a bond issuance that came back with material misstatements because we did not comply with the requirements of the Security Exchange Commission. That was a really complicated thing that was addressed because we just paid it off and it disappeared, which is what happens with a lot of sister and brother government organizations. No harm, no foul, they say. I'd like to tell you now that I am going to file a lawsuit in regards to the sales tax referendum. I'm going to challenge it, not on the ballot language being improper. I'm going to challenge it on the fraud of the board attorney at that time for changing the board's resolution and putting in something else to align with the existing quality education campaign that was run by, as treasurer of our now back again, Amy Desimore. And that should impact the decision of your finance advisors. That should impact your money. And that is why I believe they're proposing the COPS instead of the tax anticipation note, which you all discussed here. And you kind of shaked your head and you said, yeah, oh, that sounds good, tax anticipation note. And all of a sudden they change it. What I find you all doing is you regurgitating what you're being told. You're being parrots, some of you, not all of you, but you're just being parrots because you want peace when there isn't any. Thank you.
No other public speakers?
Thank you for your comments. And like I said, continue to share your information with us and we will answer your questions. Okay, the Secretary's recommendation will now move to Secretary's recommendation, election of the treasurer to fill the vacancy. And Dr. Atkins, do I read this part of you?
Yeah, first recommendation is to recommend Dr. Amy Desimore's current CFO of the district, treasurer of the Lee County School Board Leasing Corporation.
Okay, directors, you've heard the Secretary's recommendation to elect Dr. Amy Desimore, current CFO of the district, treasurer of the Lee County School Board Leasing Corporation. I'll now entertain a motion.
So moved.
Ms. Morgan, second. Ms. Fisher, Secretary's recommendation has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? And being no discussion, I'll call for the vote. Is this a recorded vote? A verbal vote. All those in favor of the motion, aye, signify aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And the motion passes 7-0. Next, we have the minutes of the December 11th, 2018 meeting. If you...
Madam Chair, a recommendation to approve the minutes from December 11th, 2018.
Now, I will entertain a motion. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Okay, Ms. Fisher and Ms. Vaughn will second. Secretary's recommendation has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? There being none, we'll take the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? And the motion carries 7-0. The resolution authorizing the issuance of certificates of participation, Series 2019A, to finance all or portion of the cost of construction and equipping of new senior high school MMM to be located in the city of Fort Myers, Florida, and 2, renovating existing facilities and constructing and equipping an addition to Lehigh Senior High School in Lehigh Acres, Florida, and authorizing execution of related documents in connection with the issuance of Series 2019A certificates.
Is there a recommendation by the superintendent?
Okay, so I read his part. Oh, you did so well on the numbers before, I was saying,
You
okay.
did very well there, so I recommend, a little pressure now.
Okay.
Recommend resolution authorizing the issuance of certificates of participation, Series 2019A, to finance all or a portion of the cost of construction and equipping of the new senior high school, MMM, to be located in the city of Fort Myers, Florida, and renovating existing facilities and constructing and equipping an addition to Lehigh Senior High School in Lehigh Acres, Florida, and authorizing execution of related documents in connection with the issuance of the Series 2019A certificates.
And I don't know if anybody timed us. Did you win? Bless you. Directors, you heard the Secretary's recommendation to approve the resolution authorizing issuance of certificates of participation, Series 2019A, in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $115 million for the purpose of financing new senior high school MMM in the city of Fort Myers, Florida, and renovation and expansion of Lehigh Senior High School in Lehigh Acres, Florida. The sale thereof in a negotiated public sale, execution and delivery of Series 2019A, ground lease, and Schedule 2019A to the master lease. D, execution of an amendment of the Series 2017B supplemental trust agreement to transfer certain remaining funds in the Series 2017B acquisition account to the Series 2019A acquisition account, and execution of related documents in connection with the issuance of Series 2019A certificates. I'll now entertain a motion.
So moved.
Okay, Ms. Morgan, seconded. Ms. Vaughn, Secretary's recommendation has been moved and seconded. Any discussion? There being none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And the motion carries 7-0. We'll now move to other business. Please note that the comments may only be made in our capacity as directors and/or officers of the corporation. Are there any comments, Ms. Fisher?
Yes, thank you to Dr. Desamore for stepping in to fill the vacancy.
Thank you. Ms. Giovanelli?
I just have one question for Dr. Atkins. What is the status of the Fort Myers Tech? I did not see the principal being renewed.
The status of Fort Myers Technical College in terms
Oh,
of the...
I'm sorry.
No, that's not about this.
That's for my discussion later, I'm sorry. I guess I'm out of line.
All right.
I'll wait my turn.
That's for the,
I'll wait my turn,
Okay.
sorry.
Okay. Ms.
gotta
Ms.
get me.
Patrica?
I'm ready to go home.
Curveball.
I know, Ms. Jordan? Ms. Vaughn? Ms. Morgan? Dr. Atkins?
No comments, thank you.
Okay, and I have none. I like the way the secretary has already written in here, and I have none. So, at this point, I'm following my script. At this point, having, okay, was there
no other
a point that
business?
she could discuss something else?
No, this is the
Mike,
corporation.
It's
It's
still in
something
the
else.
corporation. I've already moved on, I'm sorry.
She's back on our
You're back on
regular,
the other
regular
thing.
agenda.
I'm ready to go home.
Okay, I know, okay, all right. At this point, having no other business to come before this body, I will entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting. I'll ask for a motion.
So moved.
Ms. Morgan, seconded by Mrs. Jordan. I will now call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And it passes. I will now adjourn the meeting and return to our regular action meeting. Are there any public hearing items? No?
Yes.
There is, okay. We will,
So we reconvene the regular school board meeting?
I did. Yes,
And
at
then
this
we
time I
go-
reconvene the regular school board meeting, July 30th, 2019. And you have no comments, recommendations, Mr. Attorney, correct?
Yeah, that's correct, ma'am.
Okay. Before closing the regular meeting and opening the public meeting, Dr. Atkins will present his recommendations for this evening's public hearing items.
Yes, Madam Chair, I have two recommendations this evening. The first is approval to revise the 2019-2020 student progression plan, including secondary course catalog. The student progression plan is reviewed and updated annually if necessary and presented to the board for adoption. The effective date of this adoption shall be August 1st, 2019. Second recommendation is recommend approval to revise policy 1.20, community involvement opportunities to update board advisory qualifications. The effective date of this adoption shall be August 1st, 2019.
At this time, the public will be invited to speak on these two items. Time allowed is 3 minutes. Is there anyone on my right? Anyone on my left? They're all gone, that's why. Dr. Atkins, please restate your recommendations for the public hearing
We
items.
need to close the public hearing, please. And we're formally closing the public
Okay,
hearing.
I'm sorry. I will now close the public hearing and reconvene the regular school board meeting of July 30th, 2019. Dr. Atkins, please restate your recommendations.
Yeah, the first recommendation, approval to revise the 2019-2020 student progression plan, including secondary course catalog. The student progression plan is reviewed and updated annually if necessary and is presented to the board for adoption. Effective date of this adoption shall be August 1st, 2019.
The superintendent's recommendation that the board approve the revision of 2019-20 student progression plan, including secondary course catalog. Student progression plan is reviewed and updated annually if necessary and is presented to the board for adoption. The effective date, as he said, is August 1st, 2019. Can I have a motion to adopt this?
So moved.
Ms. Morgan, and we'll second Ms. Fisher.
Thank you.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? There being none, please signify your vote by saying aye.
Aye.
It's a
Aye.
No, it's
This is a
computer.
vote.
It's a computer.
back on the computer.
Okay.
Computer vote.
Oh, computer vote.
back online.
And the motion passes 7-0. Approval to revise policy 1.20, community involvement opportunities. Superintendent?
Yes, recommend approval to revise policy 1.20, community involvement opportunities to update board advisory qualifications. The effective date of this adoption shall be August 1st, 2019.
You've heard the superintendent's recommendation that the board approve revision of policy 1.20, community involvement opportunities to update the board advisory qualifications. Effective date, August 1st, 2019. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Ms. Fisher, second.
Second.
Okay, Ms. Giovanelli, moved and seconded. Any discussion? Yes, ma'am.
I won't be supporting this evening. I do believe the policy needs revision, but I don't believe that the board did its due diligence in reaching out to the public and members of committees about the need for video in addition to audio recording of the meetings. I believe that the board rushed to implement a process before articulating a policy, and I'm not confident the policy reflects let's see, it doesn't reflect a unanimous agreement on the board, and I believe that in the case when you're amending a policy, because it requires a supermajority, I am reluctant to approve something at this point that I feel may end up coming back before the board again. So those are my comments.
Other comments? Yes, ma'am.
Well, I am supporting this. I think probably the biggest objection from a couple of the board members is the line that the committee meetings shall be videotaped. I understand what Mrs. Morgan said. However, it was discussed fully about the reasons that those of us who supported videotaped meetings were supporting it, starting out with the idea of transparency and the idea of other groups like the tax oversight, I think DAC and some other groups. And of course, earlier we had moved to, before all the workshops were video recorded, we had gone that way. So I think, number one, this is in accordance to the ways that we have moved to give the public more opportunity. Equipment, we've already purchased equipment for this. I know my group that I'm a liaison to this past year, the Curriculum Advisory, I did discuss this with the group. They said that they thought it was a really good idea, and reasons that came out of this beyond the fact that it was something opening this door to the public, so the public would have easy access, because right now, to get access to the audio tape, you have to get a special, you have to actually get the flash drive. You have to, you can't just, it's not streamed on audio, okay? And that actually, we had discussed the idea, could we stream it on audio? Could there be a way that the audio would be available? And when we had that full discussion at the board table, we said we wanted to go with the videotape, and it was voted on. In addition, I think it's important to have these meetings videotaped and easily available, not just for the general public, but I, as a board member, have often wondered, well, what is financial advisory or construction advisory? What are some of the things that are coming up in those boards? It's helpful for me. The other thing that came up when I discussed it with the Curriculum Advisory Committee is that members felt that if they had to miss a meeting, it would be easy for them to catch up and watch this. As a matter of fact, what came up in that group, and that group is made up of, it was all educational professionals, retired professionals. What they worried about most was not themselves, that they had a problem with themselves being videotaped, but they wondered if it would be something that would make the staff members that were presenting, because they were a little bit afraid that to have easy access that way might inhibit some of the hard questions being asked. And we discussed that, and what we said is, what is the purpose of a Citizens Advisory Council? The purpose is we want to hit some of the hard questions. We want to get the input of our citizens, and I think this behooves us to follow through with what we said months ago at the meeting, and I think it would also, for the general public, when they come here and they make their comments, they too will have access. They'll be privy to some wonderful presentations that are done at these board advisories. And for all of those reasons, I am strongly supporting this change, adding the other language, but specifically that the meetings will be videotaped.
Okay, other comments? Okay.
No, I was just, my concern with this whole process was making sure that the people on the advisory committees already were aware of it, and those coming on would be aware of it and feel comfortable. Okay. That was the only concern that I had.
And that's why we came up with the changing the protocol and changing the application. I have a couple of things. We are an education entity, and having the ability for people to watch or learn from these committees helps to educate our community and answer some of their questions. The other thing is that the only changes are the video and the portion that says that we will take every opportunity to diversify our committees by profession and et cetera, et cetera. That's the only two changes. The second thing I wanted to say, the equipment was already purchased, it is ready, and training has already begun. The third thing is that on March the 12th, when we brought this up, Ms. Morgan, there was a supermajority. It was a vote of 5-2 to do this, with the caveat of letting people know what we were doing. So we've already had the supermajority vote. I will be supporting it. Other questions? Yes, ma'am.
I just have a question, and this is for Dr. Atkins. Is there a policy regarding the others that, some of these committees were videotaped prior. Is there a policy in place? And then, and that's my question, you know, the ones that were already being video, I know oversight, there was a policy regarding that. What about, is it DAC?
DAC, yes.
And it's in their policy that it's videotaped.
That's my understanding. I'm not sure, but I know that it has been our practice and procedure to videotape DAC on a regular basis.
Construction used to be,
And construction, yeah, the Construction Advisory Committee was videotaped at one point.
So, for me, I think it's important for the community to be able to see everything that we do, and I think that's only educating the community and one step towards loving Lee County, school district, so.
Any other discussion? Yes,
I have
ma'am.
an additional comment that I forgot. We've had members of the public come into these advisory councils and do their own private videotaping, and of course, we're not going to say they can't do that in the future, but I think that a motivation for doing that is to record it. It's often shared, but if we have our official videotape, the whole thing is there.
That's a good point.
You know, we won't have some of the objectionable things that, you know, people said, well, somebody is shooting it privately and focusing in on a particular member, or shooting it privately and then doing their own private editing. This will be an official tape of the meeting, so that's something I wanted to add to my other reasons for supporting it.
Okay. Other comments? So I will call for the vote. Is it a recorded? Yes, it is. Please record your vote. And it is 5-2, and the motion passes. Motion carries. Okay, we are up to other business, board member comments. Let's start on this end. Ms. Morgan, any comments?
I have no comments.
Okay, Ms. Vaughn.
I just wanted to wish everybody who is school-based very, you know, I know we're all involved with the opening of school, of course, but it's particularly exciting in the schools. The other day, I saw my grandson for the first time in a while. He had just gotten back a little while ago from summer camp, and he's a 7th grader this year at Diplomat Middle School. And one of the first things I said to him, and his mom was standing right next to us, I said, "Oh, are you ready? Are you all ready for school?" And he kind of scowled or something. And I was told that I wasn't allowed to use the S word in front of him, that it was just, he was just going to kind of drift into the school year. But I am going to use the S word here for all of you and for anybody who's watching, wishing a very happy 2019-2020 school year. And that's the only thing I want to say.
Okay, and Ms.
I have a rather lengthy report to give, which I will save for a briefing. But I do want to call out our maintenance workers, because even I will say it feels like it's been a bit of a hot summer, hotter than usual. And a lot of our maintenance workers have been on roofs, fixing, installing, whatever it is roofing people do. They've been doing it in the heat. And I believe, we had a great celebration of our new teachers last week.
That's Friday.
But when do we celebrate our maintenance people who make sure that our buildings are ready for our children and that they're safe for our children and our staff? I don't know that we celebrate them. I know we had that sunshine thing.
We did just recently do it with the Sunshine Committee.
Yes, we had that. But I think that, I feel like publicly they need to be called out as just being the unsung heroes / rock stars of the school district getting us ready for school, which, by the way, I am happily saying out loud frequently to my 4 children.
The S word.
School. I'll save my report for a later meeting.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Jordan?
I love what you said. Yeah, we did have that celebration at the maintenance barn. It was great. But I would just like to remind everyone that this weekend we have the back-to-school block party. It is on our website, and I think it's a great avenue for everybody to get their information. There will be plenty of stuff to do. Looks like it's going to be a bike rodeo, free bike helmets. There's tons of things. Children are able to get their IDs, services there, face painting, everything that you would want. But it will be at the Bell Tower this coming Saturday, starting at 10 a.m. And that's all I have to say. Yes.
Okay. And Ms. Giovanelli?
Actually, I'm going to piggyback off that too. Isn't it tax-free weekend?
I think it's
For shopping weekend.
I think it
it's
is.
I think it's this weekend. So just
It
a
is.
reminder about that, or just everybody check, but I think so.
We
So,
don't need an excuse to shop. but it's
well, when they're at Bell Tower, so I'm
No, yeah,
just
I
saying.
know what you're saying.
And I think it's a tax-free shopping weekend. And then I had the question about FM Tech. That's all.
Before we move on, Ms. Giovanelli, may I say that if you shop at a time other than tax-free weekend, you're contributing toward the construction and maintenance of our schools, so.
Contributing that half-cent that Mr. Navarro is looking for.
You have a point.
Okay,
Point
I
taken.
got it.
Point
Okay.
taken.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am. Ms. Fisher?
No.
I
Yeah, I just had a question for him because I didn't have the answer.
So I'm going to attempt to answer this question best I can. We do still have 2 active investigations over at Fort Myers Technical College. I do want to say that as of last week, the update that I was provided indicated that we have about 50% of the student records that they have completed in terms of being able to go through those records. It's probably a little bit more at this point because that was an update last week. As it relates to the specific investigations, Mr. Williams has determined that is sufficient for us to move forward with and provide due process, so we will be doing that in the very near future. I'll keep you posted.
Okay.
Good news, bad news. Good news is that we're finding that the amounts that we're talking about still continue to be very small amounts. However, we do find that it is many, many student records, which is what's taking this long time. So this is a real good opportunity for us to improve process. The team is hard at work, and we will continue to keep you posted there. So that's the update related to Fort Myers Technical College.
Thank you.
All righty, you're welcome.
Now, Ms. Fisher.
Okay, so I just want to say, I think the buses are ready to roll, and I want to thank, I had the opportunity this morning to attend part of the district leadership nuts and bolts workshop, and the energy was high, and I want to thank all of those of you who are still here and those who may be listening at home for all the hard work you've done all summer long to prepare for the 1920 school year. And so I hope you'll indulge me as I do my annual pledge of responsibility for children. An educator's mantra. We accept responsibility for children who sneak popsicles before supper, who erase holes in math workbooks, who can never find their shoes. We accept responsibility for children who can't run down the street in a pair of new sneakers, who are born in places we wouldn't be caught dead, who never go to the circus, who live in an X-rated world. We accept responsibility for those who never get dessert, who have no safe blanket to drag behind them, who can't find any bread to steal, who don't have rooms to clean up, whose nightmares come in the daytime, and who have never seen a dentist. Also, who go to bed hungry and cry themselves to sleep. We accept responsibility for children who throw tantrums in the grocery store and pick at their food, who shove dirty clothes under the bed and never rinse out the tub. I think those are my grandkids. Who get visits from the Tooth Fairy, who don't like to be kissed in front of the carpool, whose tears we sometimes laugh at, and whose smiles can make us cry. We accept responsibility for children who want to be carried and for those who must. For those we never give up on, and for those who don't get a second chance. For those we smother, and for those who will grab the hand of anyone kind enough to offer it. Thank you.
Thank you. My comment, the SOS program, the summer, I don't even know what all the acronyms are, Support Our Students, that's what it is. Wonderful program. A few of us were at the graduation, and we have a very bright future here. Some of the speakers were just wonderful, articulate, and we have people to fill in the gap in the future. They're coming. I went to Charleston Park to their book bag event, and it was interesting. They were cooperating with a group from FGCU to provide backpacks, so that was good. The new teacher orientation at Dunbar was wonderful, and then we went to the foundation and had snow cones and et cetera. I won't say from here. So that was really good. Board members, I want to also inform you our new auditors, RSM, will be with us on August the 12th at 4 o'clock for an opportunity to present their findings and discussion on where they go from here. I'm waiting for them to send me a document that shows the priority of any audits or what they want to look at. When I receive that, I'll send that to the rest of you, and with the request that if you have questions, you can contact them, email or call them. And if you have suggestions as to changes in that priority order, then you would let them know so that on the 12th when we meet, we can have all of that together and understand where everybody's priorities are coming from, so we have everyone's input. I think that's all that I have right now. It's been a good meeting. We've covered a lot of things. Superintendent, what do you have? Oh, the attorney first, Mr. Gabriel.
Thank you, Madam
I forget
Chair.
you every time.
Board members, I have nothing further to comment to or report on.
Okay, very good. Thank you for being here. Superintendent.
Okay, just a few quick items. First of all, Ms. Duncan indicated that she has been able to speak to Ms. Johnson, who spoke earlier this evening. She will follow up with the principal and share information provided this evening with the parent. Parent also shared that she had an excellent, long-standing relationship with the principal. So Ms. Duncan will email all the final resolution. So there's that one. Second, just wanted to inform the board that we did, or I received a subpoena from the grand jury. This is related to the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas Act. I assume this is something that's probably something you'll find statewide. Ours is specific with Cessor. So that's, Cessor are those serious events that we have to report to states. So I'm sure what they'll be looking at is making sure that we're providing accurate data. So this is just another example that we keep reminding district leadership that, if you haven't figured out that the governor is very, very serious about Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, this is just yet another example of that. I knew that the commissioner was extremely, focused on this. We have talked with our team, Mr. Pratt, and of course, Rick Parfit, and we are conducting our own audit of our own compliance with Marjorie Stoneman Douglas Act, and it is also part of the upcoming, or the current, I should say, operations audit that's currently being conducted. So again, this is a very serious item. The good news is it's focused on student safety, and we've always endeavored to be accurate in our reporting. But I'll keep you posted on that. I wanted you to be aware. Next item, Ms. Fisher, thank you for commenting on district leadership today. It was really a fantastic meeting. I really feel we have just a phenomenal team, great deal of talent, and I do want to thank this board again. You were a big part of putting this team together. Many of you made suggestions and comments and encouragement relative to some of these appointments. So, I do appreciate that, and it's really very, very gratifying to see this all come together. And of course, as Ms. Fisher indicated, there was incredible energy in the room. It was also nice to see us be able to do a lot of celebrating in terms of what the achievements of our students and our teachers and our schools, because we really saw tremendous gains as we've talked about. And of course, we've got Melissa Robry here. That her school, Eastleigh County High School, came out of DA status. Here's something I want you to realize about some of our Tier 3 principals, and she's just one of many examples, I think, of what are some of the toughest jobs in Lee County. Here's someone who drives an hour every day to work and an hour from work, at least. And you think about the construction that's taking place on 82 right now, which complicates that. In addition, she starts out with a school building that has about 71% level 1 and level 2 students. And compare that with some of your other schools, you'll find that's a incredible challenge that she and her staff face every single day. And they're able to get them up to this year C status, and she's striving for a B, and I have no doubt that she and that team will be successful. So some of you have been able to tour that school, and you've seen the incredible energy there, and that's just one of many examples that you'll find across the district, and I just wanted to point that out to everyone. We continue to work on, again, compliance with Marjorie Stoneman Douglas Act, and one is to make sure that we have a school resource officer in every building. Rick Parfit, John Pratt, Donna Schroll, because she works with our charter schools. We've been literally calling school by school. Our charter schools are proving to be remarkable partners and are helping us with this whole endeavor with school resource officers, and I have been told that we will be in compliance with an SRO in every building at the start of the school year. I did hear a little bit about Fort Myers, but I do think that that's been being worked out if it hasn't already been worked out. But we do need to show Fort Myers City Council, Cape Coral City Council, and our county commissioners our appreciation for, in this case, and of course Sanibel for stepping up to plate and providing this. By the way, if we went with another option, cost to the district would be very similar. In other words, if you look at the cost of a guardian plus benefits, plus equipping and professional development, we've been checking with other districts, and that's putting it to about the figure that we're currently spending for our share of this school resource officer. So that's good news there. Lehigh Senior High School appears to be, I won't say on track, but it will be open for students on August 12th. And what I mean by we were focused on August 2nd. It will be open August 2nd, but really August 12th for the full-blown, everybody can go in there and with students. So, I just want to make sure Jackie Corey has been all over it, and Dr. Spiro and Mr. Pratt went out there and toured the building with Scott, and he's been making sure that they're doing double shifts and everything to make sure that building gets open for students on time. And then finally, Mr. Lloyd has indicated that all buses will have drivers, and we also have substitutes that are also waiting in the wings. So I think we're going to be in good shape the first day. And of course, Dr. Pruitt reminded the team that we will make sure we have a certified teacher in every single classroom, particularly those core classrooms. So I think we are ready to go and looking forward to, again, having our wonderful students back in our schools. So thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Those are all my comments.
I have a question, just really quickly on what you said. On the 15th at that special meeting, there was not a supermajority for the policy on safety and security.
Yes.
I know we have, 90 days? Has
is
that-
correct.
Has that been put back on the agenda yet?
Yes, in fact, just today, again, spoke with the operations team and Mr. Parfit and reminded them we brought that emergency, so we have that back in the pipeline. And Jen Schaefer makes sure she makes sure I hit all my deadlines.
She does.
So that will be back in front of the board, so we have a super majority, so thank you.
And something you don't have to answer now, but just to think about, you mentioned the cost between the SRO and the Guardian program. Have we ever considered a hybrid of doing some of each, a mixture?
Yeah, we do continue to do that. That's one of the charges that I gave Mr. Parfit at the beginning of the year to study the difference between the two. So we have done that. One of the considerations that we're dealing with right now is we want to be able to make sure that every single one of our schools has a safety officer at the first day of school. And one of the struggles with having a guardian option at this point is that we do not have training as of today in Lee County. In addition to that, the training opportunities that are available to us are very late. I mean, they're just now, in some cases, just now being offered. And so completion of that in time to put a guardian in place for the start of the school year it's difficult. It's not, I don't think it's actually possible.
No.
So the school resource officer right now is our best option. And that's where we've really been working with our charter schools, and they have been, again, wonderful partners. But when you break down the cost in terms of our share, and I will provide a couple of examples that we've seen from other districts where the cost of the employee is in the mid to high 30s, and then you have benefits on top of that, and then you have equipment and training on top of that, then that's where you're getting close to that $50,000, which is, of course, our share of a full school resource officer.
Okay, thank you.
So I would be curious what the districts that are doing that blended, what that actually looks like when they're working on that. I'd be curious to
maybe we can
see what that is.
Absolutely. And I'm sure this issue is going to continue to evolve. We'll keep the board posted on that because, I don't think this option is going away. In fact, Mr. Williams, and maybe you can, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I do believe that the recent legislation may be requiring it of all sheriffs. So while we don't have that option today, that may be something that we see here in the future. So.
Okay, well, thank you very much. On Thursday, August 8th, there will be a board workshop at 9 a.m. as well as a board briefing at 1 o'clock. You can look on the website to see what the topics are. And at this point, having no other business to come before this body, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment. Don't everyone speak at once. Ms. Giovanelli. Second. Ms. Jordan, Ms. Jordan, please record your vote.
To vote for adjournment.
I have no doubt it's going to pop up 7-0.
Yeah.